What's up, everybody? I'm Reverend Nia.
I'm Minister Wallace.
My name is Reverend Tiff, and welcome to Millennial Conversations.
Millennial Conversations is a Bible study specifically for young adults where we teach through dialogue and have candid conversations from an emerging generation of leaders.
Be sure to repost and share with the hashtag RTMC. That means Read Temple Millennial Conversations. And don't forget to engage with us in the chat.
You can tune in to our Read Temple website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel every Thursday at 7 p.m. So grab your pens,
grab your notebooks,
and join us for tonight's rap session. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Millennial Conversations. We certainly do hope you all have been joining us so far for the month of June, as we have been highlighting and will continue to highlight millennial men for the remainder of the month. And on tonight, we are excited and elated to have the Reverend C. Wright with us on tonight, and we're going to have him introduce himself at this time.
Thank you, Reverend Dillard, Reverend Brooks, for having me on with Millennial Conversations, as I've been tuning in here and there since it started a little while ago. Grateful to be here. I am Reverend Brother Matt, and I go by Reverend Brother Matt because I don't like to make people feel like there's a separation. There is a separation, but I am still your brother. I grew up hearing hello, my brothers and sisters in Christ, and we are still brothers and sisters. It's not a separation because I'm ordained. So I just wanted to keep that spirit going. Also, as an educator, they call me Brother Matt at the school, so it was just right in line with everything that I was doing and how God is moving. I'm grateful for it, grateful to be here. I am a son of the second, as we're called. I grew up in Union Bethel AME Church, Brandywine, Maryland, where my father was the pastor. I was there for a period. I'm also a musician, so been out and been around the area, spreading out, playing different places. And my dad was elected bishop, at which time I went to help serve and help him out in some capacities. And God started shaking some things up there, spent some time and finished some things, graduated from college and moved to California, where I am pursuing a teaching career and also doing ministry, where I attend First AME Church of Oakland, and I am doing some things there as I'm also the young adult minister. So God's just moving, and I'm just getting the work, which is what's led to a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Man, that is super dope and super awesome. Certainly grateful for all that God is doing in your life and the life of your family as well. Listen, if you all are tuning in tonight, please make sure that you repost and reshare using the hashtag RTMC. That means Read Temple Millennial Conversations. And make sure, even if you want to, tag some of your millennial male friends so that they can learn and grow and share with us as well on tonight. And so on tonight, Reverend Brother Matt is going to be sharing with us from the title, Leading from Behind. And so as we just kick off, we're going to just throw it right back to you, man, as of course we're highlighting millennial men. And so we want to hear from you on tonight from this topic of leading from behind. And so why is this aspect of support roles so important to you?
It's critical. I believe that people should kind of know their role, know their place in the position they're serving. One of which is establishing protocol in this good old AME church. So I would like to take this time to shout out my pastor, the Reverend LaShawn Nicole Slater, pastor of Payne Chapel AME Church, Birmingham, where she is the pastor, and I am a member officially of the 9th Episcopal District, where I serve as RAAC president and some other capacities under the leadership of Bishop and Supervisors Harry and Sharita Moon C. Wright. So had to point that out. It's very important to know that in my role and where I am, it doesn't matter where I'm at, that needs to be established, and people need to know where I'm from, part of knowing our history and everything. So it's important to me. I grew up, again, the son of the parsonage, and I actually didn't even know what that term meant until
I'm about to say, now that you know what it means, can you please enlighten all of our viewers? What in the world?
Because everybody don't know. They probably like, what?
So I grew up hearing, you're a PK. You're a PK. What's a PK? You're a preacher's kid or a pastor's kid. Well, when you're a pastor in a certain denominations, or even depending on the opportunities that you're serving in as a pastor, the church usually provides a house In our denomination, there's a house or sometimes a housing allowance. A lot of people don't always stay in the parsonage, but growing up in the parsonage, they consider you a son or a daughter of, or a child of the parsonage. So I was a child of the parsonage, which comes with all the ebbs and flows and the blessings and stressings of being in the parsonage. So they kind of umbrella that term, where I heard it more in the South when I moved down South, son of the parsonage, son of the parsonage. Okay, cool, that's kind of cool. So being a son of the parsonage, there were roles and duties that I had to learn or even know about that I just didn't, it was no like handbook. It's kind of just thrown in your lap. You have experiences that you find out, shape and move how you were supposed to do or not do certain things. So there were roles. There were things you had to do. There were places, and I've said at many tables that I didn't want to eat at, not because the food was nasty, not because the people were unkind or anything, just because I just didn't want to be there. But you had to be there. Their kids are there. You got to mingle. You got to be able to do this. You got to know what not to say. You got to know how to greet people. I tell my age and I make a joke with people. I learned that you stand up to greet people when they introduce themselves, because I met Isaac Gordine, which is now the name of a middle school, but I met Isaac Gordine. He came into a meeting and I was sitting on the pew at the church, and they say, okay, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. And I sat down and shook his hand. And my dad said, you stand up when you go. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happened? But it's like you stand up when you meet these people. So I've been in different rooms and different places where I had to be on point. And then also being in spaces where I was allowed to let my guard down and I was allowed to just kind of just relax, but having or needing to be on point in other spaces kept me privy to what was going on in these other spaces. And I've kind of either been I guess the voice of influence or wisdom in the room, or the one that kind of sees some things going on because I'm paying attention to everything. So I was kind of forced into a space where I have to know what to do. I got to know these are some things that are supposed to happen, and I'm expecting these things to happen, and I'm seeing that things aren't happening like they usually happen. Is something wrong? Is something changing? Is something shifting? Okay, something's wrong. Something's shifting. Someone's off right here. Do I step in? Do I not step in because this has to be like this? This is supposed to whatever because of how this can affect things. So I've just been in different capacities that have put me in places where I had to think and I had to step in into roles that weren't mine. The term leading from behind comes from being a musician, where I actually learned it from a music workshop. It might have been at Reed Temple, to be quite honest. It might have been at Reed Temple, attending a workshop and PJ Morgan presented about leading from behind, and how when we're not they see the music department first. When people come into the church, typically you're going to be engaging the music department first. And me, I'm a rabbit hole goer. I'm gonna dig a little deeper. I'm like, well, it doesn't stop at the music department. It's at the ushers, because they see the ushers before they get into church. They see the greeters. All these things are paving the way for what someone's experience is before they hear anybody preach, before they hear anybody say amen. So if you're lackadaisy, if you're just doing our thing until it's almost time, we got 5 more minutes, I guess we can sing 2 more songs, versus actually ushering in, the spirit, or ushering in an atmosphere and helping to support what's going on and what's about to take place, because you're in tune. I had the privilege to serve as a musician under the direction of Phil Carter at Mount Ephraim Baptist Church for a long time. I learned a whole lot about how to prepare before you even get there from Phil. And one thing he would do is call the people out. He'd say, you don't have to praise. I'm gonna praise all by myself, because I'm not doing this for you. This is for me. This is mine. And just in those times, I had to really think about, this being mine. I'm not just a drummer here, where I am contributing to what's taking place in my role here. And I am an employee, but this is also my worship experience. And how much we, take ownership in that. So I try to take ownership in the spaces that I'm in and all. So that's what's kind of gotten me there. But Yeah, that's leading from behind.
True. You said something that sparked something in me. You made the comment when you're trying to figure out whether or not it was your place to do something or not do something. And too often in the church and corporate America, no matter where we are, really, this is not just relegated to religious institutions, but when you hear people say, that's not my job, or you hear people say, somebody else will do it. Like let's talk about how even that phrase, that's not my job, can prove to be detrimental to the efficacy of ministry work. Because like you said, you can have one person who say, oh, that's not my job, and I'm not responsible for that. And then something else could falter because you were in a position where you could have done it, but you chose not to. Not you, just people. I'm just saying, not coming for your life. And so let's talk about how that's not my job can prove to be detrimental to the efficacy of ministry work.
Well, I'm glad I have my pen because she threw some things in there, and I'm gonna go with you, but I gotta go around a little bit and bring us back. Cool. So you got that it's not my job aspect. And you said something about sometimes we even choose, we might see the opportunity and then we choose not to. I think, especially in the church, we run more of that risk of stepping in places that we know need us to step in. We're equipped, we're in place, we can step in. We hesitate more for that in church, with that more in church than we do in the corporate work. And it's different seeing like just all that I've been engulfed in, either working with church or working with people who work in church. So that's been the life. And now stepping out where I'm really rushed in like how uninvolved I have to be in the operations of what's going on that I'm involved in. So a lot of stuff, it is really just not my job, right? Like that's not my job. Like, I don't have to do that. Versus church, it's like, man, it's not my job. You know, Matthew sure didn't want to help me out with that thing that I asked him to. And, you know, you can't ask him to do anything because if you ask him, that, like, good Lord, you know, but I can actually be in a space where that's not my job. And I step in anyway. So like the joy that I get or the opportunities are different for me to step in secular capacities, because it is appreciated differently, one, and people know that like they don't have to do this. But I think church, we have this, you know, you're gonna do this, right? My dad used to ask the question, y'all going to church tonight? We play around, be like, nah, you know, like after all God's done for you, not going. It's like, well, then why you ask us? You know, but we knew we needed to go, but you know, we don't want to say no. You know, we're kind of really glorifying this no thing, like, oh, you know, own that no. And it's like, I can say no. I sure, you know, like it's just a lot of situations. But yeah, knowing when to step in and when to step out. I think in those capacities. So I said yes, we're hesitant, but then in those spaces to step in, we're also hesitant because we've seen what doing well can do to you in the church. You do well, you do this good. Now you need to do this. Now you need to do this. Now you need to do that. We're seeing that even now, like with the great, what is the great, not recession, the great resignation and everything going on. People are like, you know, I'm seeing how this is going and I ain't trying to do it, you know, and we can see that in the church. Like, you know, hey, I was doing well in this capacity. I was doing great here. And then I got this opportunity because I was doing great, but the opportunity doesn't really match the reality or the resources or the different things that I had to do. So where reward kind of became a stress, and I could have thrived ministry-wise in this capacity, but I'm moving to this capacity because I stepped up and I was obedient over here. It led to all of this. And that could be a blessing too. I believe that in those places we're called to be stretched. Maybe it doesn't look like what it was supposed to. Maybe the resources aren't what they were, but because we said yes, because we moved on, like different things just open up. And those aren't always celebrated spaces, but you know, they're spaces nonetheless. So right. Yeah, that's what I have on that. I'm not sure that I even answered all that, but I went where you were going. That's what happened. When you talk to Reverend Dillard, okay, and you're talking to Reverend Brooks, they throwing little things out there, and you just go in another direction. But okay.
So what it sounds like too is leading from behind takes a great self-awareness, but also the necessary need to have boundaries and to also have people in place or be the person that knows how to delegate well and encourages people's giftings, right? So going back to what you said, like the reward things, people seeing what happened, and it sounds like too that there needs to be more of an implementation of a thank you and an encouragement for doing what you do, but also being cognizant of what people are good at and where they need to be. Um, and being able to place people in the right position so that things like that don't continue to occur. And then we deal with burnout, right? Like a lot of from behind is leading from behind, not leaving, but leading from behind too, is that people have gone unnoticed, right? And it just sounds like to me how you framed it, leading from behind considers all aspects, even the aspects that are not exactly in the forefront. However, that still requires a level of awareness for everybody around and appreciation so that people remain in the places that they need to be for efficacy purposes, like you were saying, Reverend Dillard.
I agree. I had the privilege and opportunity to preach a few weeks ago at First Amy Oakland for the Lay Day. And I let them know, it was like, you have the most important job of all. Because if you are not here and you're not involved, then no one's here to serve. No one's here to serve you. If you don't come, they're not sending someone to pastor a church with no people. It's not happening. You play a very important role. And to that, it's, to say like, the role you play here, the role you play on this ministry, no matter how big or small, you see it. It is vital. It is a community. It is a church community. And the community is struggling, I believe, right now, with its identity, with its relevance, with its trust. I liken this season right now to maybe maybe a hurtful or a challenging relationship. There we go. We'll call it challenging relationship, and in this time, things are good. Things were sweet. It was a good little feel. And then something happened. Something shifted things where you start to notice some differences, maybe some things and some people don't come around anymore. Maybe we're not frequenting some of the regular spots, and the crowds aren't the same where we used to go, or I don't know, kind of connecting that. But here we are, and we're saying, well, we want to rekindle this relationship. This community has lost its trust. This community is not feeling as connected. This community is feeling neglected by some of the thoughts and some of the ideas. But we want to invite you back. We want to engage you in a different way, right? We want you to know that you can be a part of this, that we can do this, we can grow together. But you're not remembering, before when we started in the beginning, you were bringing the flowers in the form of church picnics, and we don't go out to the fellowship with the so-and-sos anymore. And I was really engaged in how we used to just go out and do community service, and we used to do these raffles and things. There was a place where I could go on a Saturday and there was something for my kids and there was something for whatever. Now we don't have half of this going on. We don't have any of the other things, that the people wishing for and hoping for, but you want to rekindle this relationship. You want to strengthen this. You want to make this bond better. And what needs to happen is that I don't think it's just the pastor and the people that need to come up with it, but I think the people amongst themselves need to figure out how they can be in support, creating that atmosphere that they're hoping will come about and be created. And that too is leading from behind. Oh, when I was in here, we used to have these programs. Okay, well, won't you start one? What's stopping you? You seem very passionate about this. You're not seeing enough things happening with the kids. What types of things would you do with the kids? It's engaging those conversations. It's leading and knowing that, I may not be the pastor. I may not be the ministry lead. I may not be the person that is the chair. I may not be the one that gets their name called, but I know the one that is, or I don't even want to be up front, but I can share this with the person because this is needed at my church. I need to be the person that steps in because the pastor is not going to hear this conversation. You know, when they're going to talk to the pastor, Lord, I've been praying about something. Okay, well, pray about it some more and whatever it is, you know, whatever. But then you going over to the parking lot and you're like, yeah, I really want to see the flowers like thrive better. Like flowers meant this and flowers meant that. We still got these same little stank flowers every week. And we want, you know, and maybe we can give flowers out. Maybe people can donate flowers and they mean something and we hand them out at the end of the month to all the, I don't know. Well, yeah, you should do that. This is how you organize that. This is how you put that together. This is how you should approach this. This is how you can propose that, because that's something I think is a great idea and it's something I want to see. You know, being that encourager is also leading from behind. It's just so many different things that can happen when we talk about the music department. You know, oh, I want to lead, I want to do this song. I really want to sing this song. Well, okay, you might want to do that. Something I used to try to implement was that you should try to learn the song and learn the parts of the song and see, you know, how, if you can understand teaching the song, see what leadership roles you can take in the song, if you want to learn the song, if you want to do the song, because this is what I'm going to have to do because you want to do the song. You know, are you willing to take on some of the things that are required if you want to do something? How much of the leadership role are you willing to take on to see and see the church that you want to see and see it be all that it can be?
I'm glad you actually just said what you said about how much are you willing to take on, because then that reminds me of the biblical text I wanted to mention in this space about leading from behind in terms of having support. And that's Exodus chapter 17. And that's when Moses and the Israelites were going up against the Amalekites. But Moses was tired. Moses, as Reverend Brooks mentioned, Moses was burnt out. And so what happened was Aaron and Hur, two people he trusted, his brother and his friend, he trusted them. They were support for him. And they sent him up to the top of the mountain and sat him on a rock. And they noticed that the more they held his arms up, the more they were victorious over the Amalekites when they sent Joshua in for battle. And so, but they also noticed that anytime Moses' arms were down, they were losing big time. And so when I think of even leading from behind, and I think of support, not staff, but support roles, the support roles not only just supports whoever the set leadership is, but the support role in of itself also secures the overall victory for everybody. You know, the support roles, it benefits the everybody, not just the church, but even the community, because of course we are the beloved community and we're supposed to serve the community at large, not just, you know, our little, you know, church spaces. And so when I look at, again, this is Bible study, so we, you know, it's okay to mention the scripture too. So when I look at Exodus 17 and I see what Aaron and Hur were able to do for Moses, I don't just see it as a support role that helped Moses when he was tired. I look at it as the support roles. They were leading from behind in order to secure everybody else's victory, to secure everybody's path forward, to secure everybody's happiness and joy and everybody's victory. And so I just wanted to point out, like, even as it relates to leading from behind, a lot of people say, well, I don't have the limelight if I'm leading from behind, and I don't get the spotlight, and I'm not featured in all the pictures, and I'm not on the Facebook post, and I don't get the shout out on IG or Twitter if I'm leading from behind. But I would like to implore everyone who may be serving in a support role, that your role as a support person, your role from leading from behind is just as important, just as powerful, and just as impactful as the pastor, as the presiding elder, as the bishop, as the president of the company, the CEO of the company. Like, it's just as vital and just as important, because you are just as vital to the overall productivity and forward movement of everybody, not just the person that you're supporting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did have a scripture as well.
Come on, scriptures. Come on.
But you hit it on, and it connects because Reverend Kendall McGroom shared a word last Lenten season, and it just stuck with me, because I was just like, okay, what's what's this about? I'm good at a lot of things, and this is where I find myself, in these supporting roles. And he talked about how when Jesus performed the first miracle, how he said, and it's right there in the script, he said, Jesus said to them, fill the jars with water. So now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, fill the jars with water, and they filled them to the brim. He said to them, now draw some out and take it to the chief steward. So they took it out. He was talking to the slaves. He was talking to the servants who were in place, and how they who weren't involved in the party, who weren't even a part of the party, were commanded to go do something so that the people in the party could be included, we could have some wine. But the labor that it took to actually go and pick up go down and get the water, bring it back and do it. And when the miracle was performed, they were the first to notice. So they were blessed by it. And it was like they were the first ones blessed and to notice, who Jesus was and what was going on, because they were servants, because they were willing to give of themselves and serve and do the hard work to do the stuff, and this story wouldn't have happened. I mean, what would have happened if they didn't serve? And that was just it just really just blew my mind. It's just like, okay, wow, shout out to you if you're watching. But yes, like, it was powerful. And that's where I think about this and leading from behind. Like, are you willing to do the work? And there's just a lot of capacities. There's a lot of things where I have, and again, stepped up in situations that, brought great blessings and great stressings. And then I also stepped away or stepped back or watched situations, just had to let them happen. And there was a blessing and a stressing in it, right? But I think there was more of a stress to know that there was an opportunity to serve. And I had to choose to step back because of what serving could mean to the whole thing, like the detriment that could come from my serving and just the thought of that. So how do we heal that? How do we get that done in church? Something I've been talking about is I believe we've done a good job of bridging the gap, but it's time for us to cross now. And it's really time for us to get through and cross the bridge and, mix the two worlds. That there's still people on the bridge that's crossing over. There's still some people on this side. There's still some people on this side, but we have bridged the gap. And it's time to just bring some of this stuff. Hey, it's time to acknowledge that there's pain on this side that was caused by this side and vice versa, right? And we have to work through this as we cross the bridge. There are some opportunities and some things that we see happening on this side. There's some things that you've encouraged on this side that you're not supporting on this side of the bridge. There's some things you want supported on this side of the bridge, but we don't know how to on this side of the bridge. You're not telling us. It's time to cross. So we just got to cross the bridge. We got to have these uncomfortable conversations. We have to encourage those to step up and lead in capacities where they won't be seen and won't be heard. But a lot of people don't know who the kitchen person is at their church or at their school, but you know who it is at the church. You know who it is at church. And a lot of times, but you're gonna know if the food is bad. You will know if the food is bad, right? And more than likely, they're not gonna say, so-and-so down at that church can't cook. They're gonna say that church can't cook. I'm not going over there. They can't cook. Well, that day it was, nope, they can't cook. So step up. You do some catering a little bit. Y'all in the parking lot talking about Sister Martha and them. They've been burning it up and not in the ways that please, right? And maybe you can step it up, but maybe you can talk to her and tell her to stop using that kind of cheese in her mac and cheese, and if she's going to cook it that way, lead from behind. So yeah, there we go.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask, how do you bridge that gap? But you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said have the conversations. I think there's so much that the church in and of itself won't address, and also chooses not to address. But I think that being intentional about having the conversations, I think, is a beautiful start. Even during last month when we were in Mental Health Awareness Month, one of the things I heard a lot that was echoing a lot for me personally, but then also even as I look at this conversation, is change the narrative. The only way to change the narrative is if you change the narrative. Change it so much so that, you can have the conversation at your next official board meeting, that you can have the conversation at your quarterly conference, that space is opened up to have the conversation at your annual conference, and so that the lines of communication are open so wide that real and positive change and impact can be made in the church and in the community.
Spaces are available.
Listen, the door is open.
Spaces are available. Doors are open for the conversations.
Yeah.
You want to have them. Do you want to have them? That's the question. Do you want to have the conversation?
Do you want to have them? And I think,
in addition to that question, do you want to have them, is, are you okay with giving your yes, even if you're not in front?
Right, because at the end of the day, what it sounds like too is that leading from behind, or leadership in general, is less about the positioning and more about influence, right? Like, do you have the influence? And that determines whether someone is a leader and is leading, regardless if they are, in this context, regardless if they are the pastor, or regardless if they are the people that are in the kitchen. Well, everyone, that is our time. So thank you, Reverend Brother Matt, for having a healthy, enlightening discussion about what it means to lead from behind. But overall, our greatest example of what it means to lead from behind is Jesus and his disciples and his ministry. They served as examples. They were servants. They served. They took the initiative, right? And it didn't matter the position. But they did have influence in all that they did. And so if you are trying to figure out, we threw out these names, Moses, but we most importantly threw out the name Jesus, and you're trying to figure out who is this Jesus person, or who Jesus is, you've heard of Jesus, and you want to do a little bit more research about who he is, and if you feel like you relate to his story, I encourage you now, I open the door of salvation to you to really accept who Jesus is and who Jesus can be in your life to help you understand how to lead from behind in the most effective way. Also, if you are in need of a church home, Reed Temple will be happy to accept you. And if you are someone who just wants to rededicate and recommit your life to Christ and the church, you can definitely feel free to to call Reed Temple home, and you can do so by going to reedtemple.org/cares. And also, if you have enjoyed this conversation and you have enjoyed many other conversations and want to be a support to the ministry by sewing, please follow the directions on your screen that will help guide you on how to do that. And so thank you again for tuning in to Millennial Conversations. Please remember to join us next week for another episode as we will continue our dialogue with millennial men. Take care. Have a good night.